All right, so today we're going to be taking a deep dive into some English idioms,
Okay.
and specifically idioms about work. So, all those like really interesting sayings that people use in offices and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And specifically, we're going to be focusing on overworking.
Oh, interesting.
And we have got some really interesting source material to work with today.
Okay, great.
Looks like you've been reading about a character named Anna
Yeah.
who might be taking her work ethic maybe a little bit too far.
Uh-huh.
And then also we have her colleagues, Denise and Tom, who offer kind of some contrasting opinions on how to work,
Yeah, it's interesting how these sources use a story like that to make these idioms come to life.
Right.
Because,
Yeah.
let's face it, we've all kind of been in Anna's shoes, I think, at some point.
Oh, yeah.
Staying up late, trying to get something done.
Oh, for sure.
Burning the midnight oil
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
meet a deadline.
And that's exactly where this first idiom comes in. So Anna, she's been working super hard
Uh-huh.
on this presentation for her boss,
Okay.
Mr. Lime.
Right.
And the presentation's about lemons, of all things.
Lemons.
And she is definitely burning the candle at both ends.
Oh, yeah, that's a classic.
Right.
It really does paint a picture, doesn't it?
It does.
Of somebody who is just pushing themselves to the limit,
Yeah.
working late into the night,
Yeah.
and then, dragging themselves out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
It's like they're trying to squeeze every last drop of energy
Yeah.
out of themselves.
Yeah, it's like they're running a marathon every day.
Right.
Um, the sources also mentioned a couple other phrases that kind of describe this, like doing overtime
Right.
and putting in the hours.
Yeah.
Which are maybe a little less...
A little more straightforward.
Yeah, a little more straightforward.
Yeah.
But it still conveys that sense of like going above and beyond.
Yeah.
Maybe to a fault.
Yeah. I think what's important to think about here is that, dedication's admirable.
Sure.
But there's a real danger in consistently pushing yourself too hard.
Yeah.
And the sources actually foreshadow this idea of burning out.
Right.
Which we all know can have some serious consequences.
Yeah.
For your well-being.
Yeah, both physical and mental.
All right.
And speaking of crashing and burning,
yeah,
that is exactly what happens to poor Anna.
Oh, no.
She ends up falling asleep at her desk, completely exhausted.
At her desk?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
I know.
That's not good.
I know. And this scene where like her coworkers, Denise and Tom, find her is so funny.
Oh, really?
Because like they're all worried about a burglary.
Oh, no.
They think somebody's breaking in.
Oh, gosh.
And so, like, the reactions are so funny because they're, like, worried about their own stuff. Like, Tom's worried about his, like, expensive gadgets getting stolen.
Oh, my goodness.
And it's just, like, this lighthearted way to show how oblivious people can be to the signs of burnout in others.
It's so true. We get caught up in our own little world.
Yes.
That we don't notice what's going on around us.
But their reactions also highlight these two very different perspectives on work.
Okay, interesting.
So Denise seems really concerned about Anna burning out.
Uh-huh.
She's like warning her about the long-term consequences.
Right.
But Tom, on the other hand, he kind of like boasts that he doesn't need to put in as much effort.
Oh, really?
Which I thought was a little ironic.
Yeah, there's definitely some irony there.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, if he's maybe downplaying his own struggles a little bit.
Right.
Or, maybe masking some insecurities.
Yeah.
About, not being as productive as Anna.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah, it definitely adds another layer to the story.
Yeah.
And then there's Denise's amazing line.
Okay.
Where she describes a burnt-out employee as being as useful as a chocolate teapot.
Yeah.
Which I just love.
I love that one.
It's such a funny and vivid way to illustrate the point that, like, someone who's completely exhausted just can't function.
Right. It's so quintessentially British, isn't it?
It is.
I just love how it uses this absurd image to make a very serious point about, the futility of pushing yourself past your limits.
It's a great reminder that, like, rest and balance are just as important as hard work.
Absolutely.
And thankfully, Anna eventually realizes that she needs to take a break.
Good.
And she acknowledges the importance of work-life balance.
That's a crucial moment in the story.
It is.
It suggests that recognizing your limits and taking care of yourself isn't a weakness.
Right.
It's actually a smart strategy for success in the long run.
Totally.
So, while burning the candle at both ends might seem necessary in the short term, it's ultimately a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, I agree.
So you really gotta...
Yeah, you gotta find that balance.
Yeah.
For sure.
You got it. What's really fascinating is that these sources they don't just talk about the dangers of overworking.
Okay.
They also provide some really great idioms that highlight the importance of working strategically and efficiently, so you don't end up, in that position where you have to be burning the candle at both ends.
Okay, now that sounds like some advice that we could all use.
Right, yeah.
So what kind of idioms are we talking about here?
Well, one that comes to mind is to have all your ducks in a row.
Oh, I love that one. It's so quirky.
Yeah.
It's like, having all your little ducklings all lined up.
Exactly.
And ready to go.
It means having everything in place.
Right.
Before you start a task.
Yeah.
Which can make a huge difference in terms of reducing stress and increasing productivity.
Oh, well, sure.
So, if you think about it, if you have all your ducks in a row, you're less likely to be scrambling at the last minute.
Yeah, you're not constantly playing catch up.
Right.
You're setting yourself up for success from the beginning. Yeah.
Exactly.
Are there any other idioms that kind of touch on this idea?
Yeah, absolutely.
Of working strategically?
Another one that people use a lot in the workplace is to hit the ground running.
Okay. I've definitely heard that one.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure. I understand the nuance though. It sounds like you're in a hurry.
Right.
But is it more than that?
It's about more than just speed.
Okay.
It's about starting a task or a project with energy and enthusiasm.
Got it.
Ready to make progress right away.
Okay.
So imagine you're joining a new team or you're starting a new project.
Right.
Hitting the ground running means that you're coming in prepared.
Okay.
You're motivated and you're eager to contribute.
So it's not just about being organized.
Right.
It's also about having the right mindset.
Yeah.
It's like that feeling when you're really excited about a project.
Yes.
And you just can't wait to jump in.
Exactly.
And get things moving.
And I think that is an important takeaway. For anyone who wants to avoid burnout, working smarter, not harder, often means approaching your work with focus and determination.
Yeah.
And I think that can actually make it more enjoyable.
Right, because if you're constantly feeling behind and stressed, that's not very fun.
Exactly. Nobody wants to feel that way.
So we've got burning the candle at both ends, which is like a warning sign.
Right.
And then we have these more positive idioms.
Yeah.
Like having your ducks in a row, hitting the ground running, that are kind of suggesting ways to work more effectively.
Exactly. And it's these idioms are giving us a roadmap for how to navigate the modern workplace.
I like that.
They're highlighting balance, strategy, and even, a little bit of enthusiasm.
A little bit of passion.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Speaking of balance, there's one idiom that I really associate with work-life harmony.
Okay. What's that?
And it's the very simple but powerful phrase, to call it a day. Calling it a day.
It's a classic for a reason.
It is.
And it's about so much more than just, ending your workday.
Right.
It's about recognizing when you've done enough.
Yes.
And it's about setting boundaries and allowing yourself to step away from work to recharge and pursue other interests.
It's so interesting how these sources present these idioms as more than just phrases.
Right.
They're like little nuggets of wisdom that can help us understand the complexities of work culture and our own relationship with work.
I agree completely. And calling it a day is such a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
In a culture that often glorifies busyness and overwork, it's a reminder that rest and rejuvenation are essential for both our well-being and our productivity in the long run.
For sure.
It's about knowing when to step back and prioritize your health, your relationships, your own personal growth.
It's like giving yourself permission to stop striving for a moment and just be.
Exactly.
So we've gone from the cautionary tale of burning the candle at both ends to these more empowering idioms that encourage us to work smarter, be prepared, and know when to disconnect.
I'm curious to see what other insights
Me too.
we can glean from the sources.
Yeah, what else have you got for us? Okay, so we've talked about avoiding burnout by working strategically.
Right.
And knowing when to call it a day.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to acknowledge that sometimes even with the best planning, unexpected challenges pop up at work.
Oh, absolutely.
It's just the nature of the beast.
You can have all your ducks in a row,
Right.
hit the ground running, and still run into a roadblock.
It happens.
Yeah, that's just the nature of work.
Yeah, and it's in those moments, when the pressure's on,
Right.
when we really need to dig deep and find that extra gear.
Absolutely.
So what are some idioms that capture that feeling of going above and beyond to save the day?
Well, one that really conveys that sense of urgency is to pull out all the stops. It's like saying, okay, we're in a tough spot. Let's use every resource, every strategy, every ounce of energy we have to make this work.
I can picture someone like dramatically pulling levers, pushing buttons, doing everything they can to turn things around.
It's like one of those movie scenes where they're trying to defuse a bomb with just seconds to spare.
But, this idiom, it doesn't just apply to like crisis situations. It can also be used to describe like those times when you're really passionate about a project and you're willing to go that extra mile.
Yeah, you want to see it succeed.
To make it a success. So it's like that combination of determination and maybe a little bit of desperation. Like failure is not an option.
Exactly.
We're going to make this happen. That's a good way to put it.
And it's interesting how like these sources actually use humor to make even these high-pressure situations feel relatable. Like with Anna's whole lemon presentation, she was definitely pulling out all the stops, even though the stakes maybe weren't quite as high as diffusing a bomb.
There's something almost comical about it.
Totally.
The lengths we go to sometimes. Worth.
Speaking of going the extra mile, that's another idiom.
It is.
That I think perfectly captures this idea of exceeding expectations. Demonstrating a strong work ethic.
It's about doing more than just what's required. Taking that extra step to make sure things are done well.
It's like the difference between just meeting a deadline and then going above and beyond to make sure the project is truly exceptional.
Taking pride in your work.
Yeah.
Showing that you're invested in the outcome.
It's so interesting how these idioms
often reflect cultural values.
That's a really good point.
Like in so many Western cultures. Hard work, individual achievement are highly prized.
It's true.
And these idioms are a way of recognizing and celebrating those values.
It's like these phrases are not just about language. They're about understanding the beliefs and attitudes that shape the way we work.
So while learning these idioms can help you navigate the workplace, and communicate more effectively, they also offer a window into the cultural norms and expectations of a society.
It's a really fascinating perspective.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
I agree.
Exploring idioms that really capture the ups and downs of work life.
Absolutely.
We talked about avoiding burnout, working strategically, knowing when to call it a day, and even pulling out all the stops when necessary. And we saw how these colorful idioms, with their vivid imagery and their sometimes humorous undertones, can make even the most mundane or stressful work situations feel a little more relatable.
A little more human.
A little more human.
Yeah. I like that.
It's like having this secret language that helps us decipher the code of the workplace. And connect with each other.
I love that.
On a deeper level.
I do too.
So to all our listeners out there. The next time you find yourself burning the candle at both ends or needing to pull out all the stops, remember these idioms. They're more than just words.
That's right.
They're a reflection of our shared experiences, our struggles, our triumphs, and our uniquely human way of finding meaning.
I agree.
In the work we do.
Beautifully said.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time.